A kitchen built on failure that changed dining forever. Most people only remember the success. They forget the years it refused to work and the cost of getting it wrong. This story matters now because failure is often hidden, edited out, or reframed as strategy. But in the culinary world, some of the most influential ideas were born through collapse, not confidence. To understand how one kitchen reshaped modern dining, we need to return to a place where nothing worked as planned, because the same fear of failure still prevents breakthroughs today. The restaurant did not open to applause. It opened to confusion. Early menus felt unfinished. Techniques pushed boundaries without delivering comfort. Guests left uncertain, sometimes frustrated. Reviews were polite, then hesitant, then quietly skeptical. Inside the kitchen, chaos ruled. Dishes failed mid-service. Concepts collapsed under execution. What looked bold on paper felt broken on the plate. The team questioned everything. The chef questioned themselves. But instead of retreating, they documented every mistake. Every failure became data. Every rejection became feedback. Plates were rebuilt nightly, not refined over months. The kitchen operated like a laboratory, not a restaurant. This approach came at a cost. Staff turnover was constant. Financial pressure never eased. There was no safety net, only belief that something meaningful would emerge. Investors grew impatient. Advisors recommended simplification. Critics urged restraint. Yet the chef refused to stabilize. Comfort was the enemy. Predictability felt like surrender. The goal was not to please, but to discover. At first, that mindset isolated the restaurant. It did not fit existing categories. It wasn't traditional. It wasn't avant-garde enough. It lived in an uncomfortable middle ground where expectations failed. But within that failure, patterns began to appear. Guests remembered specific moments, not entire meals, but sensations, a texture, a temperature, an emotion. Those fragments became clues. And slowly, through accumulation of mistakes, a new language started forming, one that would soon challenge everything dining thought it knew. As months passed, failure stopped feeling accidental. It became intentional. The kitchen began testing ideas knowing most would collapse. Menus shifted weekly, sometimes nightly. Guests never received the same experience twice. This instability unsettled everyone. Regulars disappeared. New guests arrived confused. The restaurant earned a reputation for unpredictability. Some saw courage. Others saw recklessness. Both were correct. Inside the team, resilience replaced certainty. Cooks learned to detach ego from outcome. A dish failing publicly no longer felt personal. It felt necessary. Every misstep narrowed the path forward. Then something unusual happened. Critics returned, not to judge, but to observe. They sensed movement, not progress, but direction. The restaurant wasn't improving traditionally. It was evolving. The chef began isolating moments that worked. A fermentation technique that unlocked depth. A service rhythm that softened chaos. A pacing choice that allowed guests to breathe. These fragments became anchors amid disorder. However, tension remained. The margin for error never widened. Burnout loomed constantly. Some nights ended in silence, others in argument. The question resurfaced daily. How long could this continue? The turning point arrived unexpectedly. A full service where nothing failed dramatically. Not because the menu simplified, but because the team understood the system. Failure had taught them how to listen. That night felt different. Guests stayed longer. Conversations slowed. Plates returned empty, not out of politeness, but satisfaction. No one announced success, but everyone felt it. Still, the breakthrough was fragile. One good night did not erase years of struggle. The real test was whether failure could stop being survival and become foundation, and that test was approaching fast. As momentum built, the kitchen faced an unfamiliar challenge. Consistency. After years of instability, repetition felt dangerous. The team worried that stabilizing too soon would erase what they had learned. But the failures had changed them. Systems emerged organically, not rigid rules, but shared instincts. Cooks anticipated problems before they appeared. Adjustments happened mid-service without panic. Chaos softened into controlled tension. The restaurant's identity sharpened. It was no longer defined by what failed, but by how it responded. Guests began describing the experience differently. Alive, honest, unfinished in the best way. Industry attention followed. Chefs visited quietly, sitting in corners, taking mental notes. They weren't copying dishes. They were observing process. The permission to fail publicly felt revolutionary. Yet, pressure returned in a new form. Recognition invited expectation. Could the restaurant remain experimental once it was understood? Could failure survive fame? The chef made a deliberate choice. Some successful dishes were retired. Popular techniques were abandoned. The kitchen refused to calcify. Every menu reset the risk. This frustrated some guests, delighted others. The restaurant stopped being a place to visit once. It became a place to return to, knowing it would never repeat itself. The toll remained heavy. Burnout never disappeared. But purpose replaced desperation. Failure was no longer an accident. It was infrastructure. And in embracing that identity fully, the kitchen approached its most consequential realization. That progress is not the absence of failure. It is fluency within it. The realization settled slowly, not as relief, but as clarity. The kitchen had never been broken. It had been unfinished by design. Failure stopped feeling like something to escape. It became something to protect. A signal that curiosity was still alive. That comfort had not taken over. The team no longer feared collapse, because collapse had taught them how to rebuild. The restaurant's influence spread quietly. Other kitchens adopted its mindset, not its menu. Labs replaced rigid hierarchies. Process mattered more than polish. Chefs spoke openly about mistakes, and younger cooks felt permission to experiment. Years later, the restaurant would be remembered less for specific dishes, and more for what it normalized. The idea that failure, when documented and respected, accelerates truth. That refinement without risk leads only to repetition. In a culture obsessed with flawless outcomes, this kitchen offered a different path, one where progress feels unstable, where growth feels uncomfortable, where learning happens in public. Today, dining continues to evolve under that shadow. Tasting menus change faster. Concepts open unfinished. Curiosity outweighs certainty. The legacy lives on, not in recipes, but in courage. Because sometimes the thing that changes everything is not success. It is the willingness to fail again. Subscribe to join the journey. A kitchen